So, safety contract. We will have a test over this tomorrow, so make sure you read over it. It should be straightforward. Don't drink acid, such and such, but read over all the material. Also, get your parents to sign it and give it back to me ASAP. So, lab safety is very important. Let me tell you a story of one of my lab sessions I had in college. So we were having a normal traditional lab, nothing dangerous. We weren't supposed to be doing really anything really of major concern in the lab. Go in, do something with dyes, nothing dangerous were involved. So if you were to come into this classroom and you see dirt or dust on your table, what would you do? My natural instinct is to wipe it off. Do any of y'all know what acidic salt is? So, have y'all ever seen The Mummy? If you've seen The Mummy, there's a certain scene where he opens up a coffin. As soon as he gets the box open, there's acidic salt. Or there's like sand or salt coming out of it and the skin liquefies. If you've seen that part of the scene, first of all, that's Hollywood. It doesn't really work like that. Where acidic salt is when it mixes with water, it forms an acid. So the acidic salt by itself doesn't do really anything, but if it mixes with water, it will form an acid. Now, we are mostly water. We have a lot of moisture on our skin. And so if you get acidic salt on your skin, it's not going to do anything immediately. As it stays on your skin, the small amount of moisture is going to react with that acidic salt, and it's going to form an acid, and eventually it's going to start burning you. At that point, you should go and dilute the acid by washing it off. It's going to produce more acid, but as long as you continually flush it, no big deal, you can wash it off. So, sitting there, if you accidentally get acidic salt on you, after a few minutes, it's going to start burning. You're probably going to develop a rash. But as long as you don't keep it there, keep it burning on you and sit there and watch it, you can just wash it off. You might have a rash later. It's nothing, no big deal. But this student went in and wiped her desk off, and there was some acidic salt. She was wiping away acidic salt. She got it in her hand. Again, nothing too dangerous. She doesn't know it yet, but there's going to be some acid forming on her hand. Now, a few minutes later go by, and she takes her goggles off, her eyes are itching, and she rubs her eyeball. Your eyes don't have just a little bit of moisture, they have a lot of moisture. The salt immediately reacted with the water to form highly concentrated acid on the eyeball. After she did this, she started immediately screaming in pain at the top of her lungs, pain while covering her eye. Luckily, our professor knew lab safety protocols and what to do immediately. He saw her covering her eye and screaming. He told the rest of the students to move over, and we all moved over to the side. He grabbed the student, took her to the wash station, grabbed her, put her head down, and turned it on, and started immediately trying to grab her eyelids and hold them open. He sat there and washed her eye out for about 15 or 20 minutes. She lost 90 to 95% of her eyesight. She did this for about a week or two. That was like 90-95% of her eyesight gone. Now again, this lab, we weren't doing anything dangerous. The previous lab really wasn't doing that big deal of dangerous. I mean, yes, they knew not to get it on your skin, but someone had made a mistake and spilled lab. We have chemistry classes at IPC. This is the lower level chemistry class. I have a real chemistry class 2 periods before this, where we might do some chemicals and someone might not clean up. The point of this is you need to know lab safety. You need to be able to prepare and know what to do. Now, say she lost 90 to 95% of her eyesight. After 2 or 3 months, because the professor had acted so quickly in washing out the acid, she had regained over 80% of her eyesight back. So enough to where normal glasses could correct for the vision loss. I think after a year or two, she probably regained more than that and got most of her vision back. But if the eye, if she wouldn't have been gotten to the eye wash immediately, she would have been permanently blinded for the rest of her life. So you need to understand what to do, dangers involved, and this is serious because even though you might not be doing something dangerous, there are dangerous chemicals in the lab. So if I were to say we're having a lab tomorrow, and tomorrow when you show up, you should not enter the lab. You should come to this classroom, and you will not enter the lab even if the door is open until I give you permission. When you enter the lab, do not touch anything. I could have beakers, what look like they have water set up when it might not be water. There could be another, Miss Tomlin could have something set up. You're not allowed to go in and start messing with anything until you have permission. You should follow all instructions, both written and verbally given. Be sure to ask any questions if you don't understand. Do not conduct any experiments unless you have teacher permission. So, have y'all used bleach? Have y'all ever used bleach? Would y'all say bleach is a dangerous chemical? But it's relatively safe. Relatively, like as long as you don't drink it or bathe in it, it's relatively, yes, there's some danger involved. But as long as you don't drink it, I would say it's a safe enough chemical to handle. Have you ever used ammonia? Ammonia cleaning supplies. That's another chemical. It's relatively safe. It's safer than bleach. So let's say that you were cleaning your bathtub. You started out by getting some ammonia, and you scrub it down, and ammonia is not doing anything really. So you decide to then go get bleach. So ammonia and bleach are relatively safe chemicals. And let's say you then get bleach and you pour it in. What would happen? Chemical reaction. It will produce chlorine gas. Chlorine gas, when it enters your lungs, turns into hydrochloric acid. It'll dissolve your lung tissue from inside. It reacts with water to produce hydrochloric acid. Is what the Nazis used to kill millions of people in Germany during World War II. It's a banned weapon. It's a horrible way to die. It's just sitting there choking on basically yourself as your lungs are dissolved away. That actually gets people because there are two household chemicals used for cleaning. They should never be mixed together. I tell you this because you do not know all the dangers to what happened by mixing two innocent looking chemicals together. They usually try to not sell things that can react like that. But a lot of people don't know about ammonia and chlorine. Or bleach. Bleach actually reacts with a lot of things. Dish soap, I think it also reacts with.
I'm going to try this one again.
It's dangerous. So don't go in and mix anything. Don't do any experiments unless you have my permission. You will leave your backpacks in this room. Do not take them into the lab. You don't want to be tripping over them. Know the location of the eye wash, safety shower, where fire extinguisher is. When we go in, I will point out on the first day of lab when we use everything. You probably already know. Another good thing to think about is if you get something in your eyes and you're blinded, do you know where the eye wash station is if you were suddenly close your eyes? I've worked in very dangerous chemicals where every time before I opened up a chemical, I would look around and make sure fire extinguisher's there, eye wash station is right to my left, fire blankets over there. I knew where all my stuff was. Because there's a chance that I could be permanently blinded and I would have to find everything with my eyes closed. It's just something you always need to think about, or at least in a danger side. And this school, we're not going to be doing anything too major, and you will also be not in a lab by yourself. But it's always something to think about that. Goggles and aprons should be worn anytime heat, chemicals, and glassware are used. So heat includes hot plate or fire. And anytime we're doing glass, you need to use goggles and an apron. Eye wash station. So if you get chemical splashed in your eye or somehow get chemical in your eye, 15 to 20 minutes of having the water wash your eyeball. Have you ever had someone shoot you in the eye with a water hose or a squirt gun, or in the shower you look up and some water splashes in your eye? It's hard to keep your eye open. But if you're just washing the front of your eyelid, you're not doing anything. You will have to force yourself for 15 or 20 minutes, about half a class period of washing your eyeball. It's going to be very, very uncomfortable, but it could save your eye, depending on if you do it quick enough and long enough. Safety shower. If you were to spill a lot of a chemical that's slightly corrosive on you, so some chemicals, if you get on you and you quickly wash it off, no big deal. Some chemicals, if you keep it on you all day, it could really hurt you. So some chemicals you would have to, also like if you get acid on you, you would have to go in. A large spill chemical, you'd have to stand in a shower and wait for it to be washed off. I do realize that a lot of people are going to be very uncomfortable being standing under a shower, getting soaking wet. So if this does happen, my plan is everyone out of the lab. They'll go in the hallway and someone go get the principal and nurse. I will stay with the student who is under the shower and making sure the chemical is washed away. Because at the same time, some chemicals will be burning. I can imagine, at least if I had a chemical acid on my leg and my leg's burning and in pain, I'd probably want someone to hold my leg into the water and to go in and try washing the chemical off. Because I would be in so much pain, I couldn't do it myself. Again, this is IPC. This is not the full chemistry class. We probably will not be doing anything remotely dangerous, but you should at least know lab safety, because there's a chance that someone left a bottle of acid out and then someone threw it at you. Fire extinguisher. Pull the pin, aim it toward the base of a fire, and pull the handle or trigger. Very simple. Yes. Okay. So there's different types of fire extinguishers. Some are rated to handle electrical fires, some for chemical fires, and then we have our standard CO2 canister. See, what they all mostly do is they rob the fire of oxygen. So, if you were to spray, so let's say we have some wood and a fire going up. If you take the fire extinguisher, point it at the fire itself, it will not put the wood out on fire. It's going to rob the flames up top of oxygen, and the flames are going to die down. But the wood is still going to be burning. So as soon as the fire extinguisher ran out, it's still going to catch back on fire. You point a fire extinguisher at what's actually burning, at the base of the fire of what's actually going to be, what you're actually trying to put out. First aid kit, in case you get burned, there are some burn cream we can get you. Burn cream contains lidocaine that helps. It's a pain reliever, helps prevent pain. Also, it could have some chemicals in it that are designed to reduce scarring. Fire blanket. So hair and clothing are very flammable. Specifically, if you get clothing on fire, you're probably going to want to drop on the ground, roll, and someone get a fire blanket to help smother down the fire. If there's a small fire, like you drop some alcohol, you can imagine like a gas spill, and it's a small area and the floor catches on fire, use a fire blanket to put out the floor. Should know where the exits are. So, when would you use a fire extinguisher to put out a fire? In what scenarios would you choose? When would you decide to use a fire extinguisher, fire blanket, or shower? When would you use a fire extinguisher?
When something's on fire.
So, let's say I'm on fire. Would you use a fire extinguisher? So, you don't just use a fire extinguisher when something's on fire. There are certain cases. So fire extinguisher robs the air of oxygen. If you spray it on a person, they won't be able to breathe. What you usually do fire extinguishers for large fires. So when would you use a fire blanket? You would use it on a person usually, or a small area. If we have like the cabinets, if the cabinets burst on fire, you wouldn't be able to use a fire blanket to put it out, even if it's small. You'd have to use fire extinguisher. When would you use a shower? Yes, so if you have a chemical that's creating the fire, putting a fire blanket over it may put out the fire, but the moment you remove the fire blanket, it's just going to recatch back on fire because the chemical is actually the thing that's actually creating the fire. And until you remove the chemical, the fire won't stop. So some chemicals are poisonous but are relatively safe to handle. For example, hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer is effective at killing germs, bacteria, viruses, because it goes in and destroys the cell wall, or the protein layer of the virus. We as animals don't have a cell wall. So the alcohol in hand sanitizer does nothing to our skin. Relatively safe, it kills bacteria. However, it is poisonous. If you were to drink a shot of it, drink like a cup full of it, you would get very sick. Some chemicals can be relatively safe to handle, and but if accidentally ingested, it's actually poisonous. So the CDC 2 or 3 weeks ago released a thing about hand sanitizers. So a lot of companies are trying to produce massive amounts of hand sanitizer because of the pandemic. However, they have recently been seeing that they are skipping on safety. So ethanol is, so whenever you produce alcohol, certain types like ethanol is a drinkable one. In some alcohol production, you also produce methanol. Methanol and ethanol are very similar. They have almost the same properties, except for methanol is extremely toxic. It's extremely, I shouldn't say toxic, it's extremely poisonous. If you were to ingest some of it, first, small amounts will make you go blind. You could permanently lose your eyesight by ingesting small amounts of it. Large quantities of it, it will be actually lethal and could kill you. And they have found that some companies have allowed the concentration of methanol in hand sanitizer to be well above safety limits, and it has been causing some people to lose their vision and die. But methanol is fine on your hands. But ingesting a small amount of it could harm your eyes. Now the concentration isn't enough that if you were to put it on your hands, and then as long as you don't just immediately, like if you put like a fistful of it in your hands and grab your food, it should be relatively safe because it evaporates so quickly. But you should know that some chemicals are, like I said, Small amounts of it, if you ingest it, are dangerous. You also have stomach acid, and some chemistry can go involved in your digestive system. You should also always wash your hands before leaving the lab, so that you don't have any chemicals on it and go get something to eat later. So any accidents or spills need to be reported to me immediately. If you spill, I was in a situation where someone dropped a bottle of acetone in a lab. It's fingernail polish, so acetone, relatively safe, right? They dropped it, and it's highly volatile, meaning that it produces a lot of vapors, and the entire room filled up with acetone. You couldn't breathe in it. Like literally, if you walked in, there's no oxygen to breathe. It had so much acetone gases that the room itself was toxic to be in.
Yeah, I feel like smelt it before to see what it smelled like, and it burned your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like it burned your nose.
Yes. So, if you spill something, there are some chemicals that are safe, like gasolines. It's safe to have in a container, but if you were to spill it, the gas vapors will quickly suffocate you in the room. So, and some chemicals have no scent. So I can't tell you every single possible scenario. So make sure if you spill anything, let me know, because there's some things that are safe in a container, but if you pour it out on the floor in a large area, the vapors could be dangerous or explosive. If you cut yourself, again, there are some chemicals that if you get on your skin, nothing will happen, but if there's a single cut, and that chemical will get into your bloodstream like that, you could die. But for example, if I had rattlesnake venom, I shot a rattlesnake venom and drank it, what would happen? No, I only have an upset stomach. Rattlesnake venom and most snakes' venom is venomous. It's toxic. It is not poisonous. There's a difference between poisonous and toxic. Rattlesnake venom, as long as I don't have any ulcers in my stomach, I don't have any cuts or tears in my digestive system or stomach, as long as it doesn't enter my bloodstream, it can pass safely through my digestive system, which means I could drink a large cup full of snake venom, no problem. I take a single droplet, cut myself, and put that droplet on it, it soaks up into the bloodstream, I could die.
I got bit by a snake. I almost died.
In an emergency, call me. If there's any living organisms in there, I don't think there is or will be. If there's any preserved biological materials such as frogs, we have pig's hearts, anything like that, treat them with respect. Be ethical. They were once alive. Don't harm anything living either. Before you leave, when you finish your lab, start cleanup. You must wait to be dismissed from lab. Whenever your table is ready to be dismissed, raise your hand, put your chairs up. I'll tell you. I'll come over and look and make sure you cleaned up everything. We're not going to leave a whole bunch of chemicals and residue on the table. Disposing of lab materials. So when I was in the 10th or 11th grade at the school, I graduated in 2007. I forget when I took chemistry. My class, not my class period, but the period after mine, like 7th or 8th, we had a chemistry. The other class, but it's still whatever grade I was in. They decided to dump a whole bunch of vinegar and baking soda down the sink. Have you ever done the volcano experiment, where you mix vinegar and baking soda together? It produces a whole bunch of gas. So some chemicals, if you dump them down a sink, will dissolve the piping and cause leaks, or could burst the pipes. They broke the pipes. This is that 7th or 8th period. They didn't discover it until the next morning. Next morning, the bathrooms were flooded. And then, because the pipes are underneath the skull, We can't just directly go to them and fix it. We were out of water for 2 weeks here. That means no bathrooms were at the school. We're working. We had no water fountains either. So 2 full weeks without bathrooms. Students were told, use it before you come. So do not dump anything down the sink, as it could corrode the pipes and break them. Broken glass. Do not touch broken glass with your bare hands. Use a broom. Do not throw it in the garbage. Garbage bags are very thin. It'll easily cut through the garbage, and when someone picks it up, it'll cause glass to go everywhere. No horseplaying or fooling around. I take lab safety very seriously. I've seen my number of incidents happening in a lab. I know lab can be a dangerous place. I try to make it as safe as possible. So if you're horseplaying around, I will ban you immediately from the lab for the rest of the year. Instead of doing labs with the rest of the students, you will go to either ISS or the office and have to write a very long paper detailing what you think the point of the lab was, what you think you will have learned if you did it, explain the lab, what the lab was. I would make it as uncomfortable as possible, and everyone else would probably get a free 100 for participation, while you have to write a paper and I will grade that paper. So, general rules: wash your hands before leaving. Fire drills. If you're in the lab and the fire alarm goes off, do not leave. You do not have permission to leave when a fire drill goes off. The only exception is if you see large amounts of smoke or fire. If you simply hear the fire alarm, you do not have permission to leave unless your life is immediately in danger. This building is flame retardant. Retardant means that it doesn't mean that it's flame proof. It just means that it doesn't easily burn. There's a lot of concrete in it, in the walls. So if there's a fire in one part, the school's not going to burn down in a few minutes. You have time to do stuff before having to evacuate. The exception is if you immediately see the fire or smoke billowing into the room, then you have to go immediately. So, for example, if we're in the lab and we're using Bunsen burners and we have natural gas going on, and they burnt a cake and a fire broke out, it's not going to spread. That fire isn't going to spread to the lab in the next minute or two. But if you immediately left with the gas on, what do you think is going to happen? There's going to be a large explosion. That explosion can send shrapnel outside and could kill people. So, if we're in the lab, we're going to need to shut down before anyone leaves. Make sure the gas isn't running. Make sure if we're doing some chemical reactions, make sure they're safe and there's not going to be a fire breaking out there. Because how many times does the fire alarm accidentally go off and we're not really, there wasn't really a fire? It just went off, or they're doing a drill. We do not want to be the cause of a fire, especially if we're having a practice drill. We don't want to actually create a real fire by mixing chemicals together. Also, if we're in this classroom and a fire drill goes off, fire alarm goes off, you will not leave the classroom until I give you permission. Line up at the door. I will open the door starting next week and go keep the door closed. But line up at the door, wait until you have permission. I'm going to look out, see if it's safe, see if I see any smoke or fire. We're taught as teachers every year before school starts, we discuss the scenario of a school shooting. So I don't know if you're aware, but there's a lot of school shootings in America. One of the number one thing we're been seeing is a lot of people tend to come up to the school and they'll, in the middle of class, pull the fire alarm, and all the students are trained to immediately rush out into the room in the hallway and give the shooter ample line of sight. So I'm going to be looking down, so do not leave. And because fire doesn't spread that fast, I'm a science teacher, fire is going to be a while forever if a problem for us. I'm going to wait probably a minute or so, let other students go first. And then after I see everyone pass, then we'll go. Smelling chemicals. So if you want to test for something, do the wafting method. Never take chemicals directly to your face and breathe it in. When I was in speech class in college, because I'm a science nerd, I gave a speech on the electrolysis of water. The electrolysis of water is basically running electricity through water, breaking the hydrogen, and also water is H2O, breaking the hydrogen and oxygen apart, making hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. But water doesn't conduct electricity. In order for water to conduct electricity, you need an electrolyte to be added to the water. I chose the most common electrolyte, table salt. Table salt is sodium chloride, which produces chlorine gas. So when you do the electrolysis of water with table salt in it, it's going to produce a small amount of chlorine gas. It doesn't produce that much chlorine, but it's enough that you can smell it. If you ever went to a swimming pool, you smelled chlorine before. Again, chlorine, when it enters your lungs, produces hydrochloric acid. Very dangerous, because if you don't breathe in that much, it's a low concentration of acid, it's not going to do much. Like, for example, Coke cans are acidic, but it's not that strong of an acid because it's heavily diluted in water. I went over there and saying you can smell the chlorine being produced. I could have used some different chemicals and it would have been safer, but I commented, and my professor reached over and sniffed it by putting her nose directly to it. Directly over it, there was a large concentration of chlorine. She breathed it in, and her lungs stopped working. She was robbed of oxygen. She breathed in a lot of hydrogen and chlorine gas, and took a few steps back and almost collapsed. She couldn't breathe for about 5 or 6 seconds. So even if it's not that strong, if you were to breathe in like acetone or something, you could actually pass out and stumble backward and bust your head on something. So be mindful of that, even if the chemical itself isn't that dangerous. Broken glass, do not touch it with your bare hands. Electrical equipment. We're probably going to be having to plug up hot plates and other things. Microscopes, I don't think really important in this class. But has any of y'all ever been electrocuted? It hurts. How were you electrocuted?
Whenever it was raining outside and I had to flip a breaker outside.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot.
I know someone who was. My brother was struck by lightning.
Huh?
We met twins. They're freshmen.
So if you were to touch a bare of wire, go up and touch it. It's going to shock you. You've probably never taken anatomy and physiology, but how your muscles work is your brain sends electricity down your arm, electrical signal, to your muscles and causes them to contract. If you touch something with electricity live, the muscles in your hand are going to contract. So when you touch something and you get shocked, your hand's going to jerk and then you're going, "Ow, that hurt." If you touch a bare wire like this, your hand is going to contract. But now you can't let go. Your instinct is to pull back. As the electricity moves down the rest of your arm, your entire body is going to be paralyzed. All the muscles in your body are going to contract. So what happens is you grab hold of this, you are paralyzed, you're going to grab that wire so hard that your fingernails are going to dig into your skin. You're going to sit there unable to move, your entire body tensed up, unable to move, and you're going to notice your hand smoking, your entire body starts to smoke. You're going to be in the most pain in your entire life as you literally are fried. You're being electrocuted, your hand's going to smoke, it's going to turn black, and start to char. You're going to see sparks coming off. Your hand might even catch on fire. It is an extremely painful way to die. The entire time you're unable to move. That's if the electricity doesn't stop your heart immediately, but I'll get to that in a second. So, how would so if you're being electrocuted, there's probably nothing you can do unless somehow you fall over because you're paralyzed and can't move. You still should try, but chances are you might not be able to get off. But if you see another student being electrocuted, what should you do?
You charge at them and you push them really hard.
Yes. There's two methods. The preferred method is to use something that doesn't conduct electricity. And we try to push the student back, grab them, pull them back, make them fall under their own weight. We try to hit their hand, but we try not to touch them. So if you heard of someone touching, if you ever heard of someone dying by lightning strike or touching a wildflower and instantly dead, the reason that occurs is that electricity goes through your heart. If it goes through your heart, it can cause your heart to contract and then never start working again. Because like I said, electricity causes your muscles to contract and it'll cause your heart to squeeze up as hard as possible and break your heart. By your heart, you're dead. So if someone's being electrocuted and you go up to push them, first of all, you're going to become electrocuted. You're going to become paralyzed. And there's also a chance the electricity will go through go through their heart, kill them. So as soon as you touch them, you kill them. And then you're paralyzed while holding on to them. They usually, even though they're dead, will not let go because the electricity is keeping their muscles working. And you will sit there and be electrocuted now too. Cattle fences usually can only electrocute one person at a time, but these power fences are hooked up to the mains, which has enough electricity where 2 or 3 people can run up in a chain and all be electrocuted. So pushing them off with a stick is the preferred method. Again, there's a small chance that if you push them and run and tackle them, that you can cause the electricity to go through their heart and kill them. We can do CPR and try to get the heart back working though. So the second method, if you don't have anything that's non-conductive to go up there and do it, is run at full speed and so you tackle them. You do not want to stand still and push because the moment you touch them, you're paralyzed. You want to have full speed so that when you hit them, you'll become paralyzed, but your momentum will continue pushing you forward. So glassware. So how we use Pyrex glasses. How it works is the molecules of the glass are stretched. It makes it very break resistant to where it doesn't break or shatter as easy. You can drop it and it should survive depending on the height. So yeah, you can bang around. You can also heat it to high temperatures and then cool it down and it shouldn't break. The molecules are being stretched. I would think of it like a rubber band. If you take several rubber bands and then stretch them out, and then you hit it, it's not going to break. The rubber bands are going to stay really glued together. But what would happen if 2 people were pulling on a rubber band and one person lets go?
It's going to swing back.
It's going to swing back and hit you. So this is why you have to wear goggles. These glasses are designed not to break, and not to break when you're heating them up. But when they do break, there's so much tension, it's like a rubber band snapping. The glasses go flying everywhere. You do not want glass in your eye because it's really hard for surgeons to find the glass to remove them. Glass is transparent, and having transparent in your material in your eye is really hard to find. If there's any chip or crack in the glassware, think of the rubber bands. What would happen if you made a cut mark on a rubber band and you try pulling it back really fast? You can stretch it back, but then it's going to quickly break and snap. Same thing with glass. If you see any chips in it, any cracks, the glassware is no longer usable. Hot glassware. So when you boil water, if you were to take a whole deal of water and boil it, how long will it take the water to cool off? It takes several minutes. It takes a long time for water to cool off. Now, if you put metal into the oven and then pull it out, it's probably cool in about a minute or two, depending on how thick it is. Glass is like water in that it takes forever for glass to cool off. It stays hot for a long time. So if we heat up any glass, it's going to take a long time for it to actually cool off. So if you heat up any glass, do not touch it without tongs or a mitten. Also, heating test tubes. Think of them as mini cannons or guns. When you're doing a reaction, bubbles can form, and bubbles can prevent gas, can cause gas buildup, and all of a sudden it could spray all the contents to the tube in a certain direction, like a cannon firing it out. It's not going to do it with any force, but you're going to have splashes coming out of it. Do not point it toward yourself or anyone else. When you're heating it up, always keep it pointed in a safe direction. So, what's wrong with this image?
There's stuff still.
Almost everything. She's not wearing goggles. He's looking down a test tube. This is a very messy, untidy place. You need to keep your things tidy. What is this student doing wrong?
She's smelling it.
See, that's what I say. 50% of every year, every class, 50% of the students say he's drinking it. 50% of the students saying he's smelling it. I'm on the smelling side. It looks like he's smelling it. But anyway, do not drink or directly smell any chemicals. Also, multitasking. Do not multitask. If you're pouring something down the sink or mixing two chemicals, that's all you should be doing. You shouldn't be texting on your phone while doing something else. You need to be paying attention to one thing.
At this time, car riders, pickups, student drivers are released to go.
What is this student doing wrong?
Her hair's down.
Hair is down. What else?
She has long sleeves.
Long sleeves, and they're on the table collecting any chemicals that were left on the table. Anything else?
No girlfriend.
No goggles. She is holding a glass speaker. If you use glass, you need goggles. And you need an apron. The glass, when one of those breaks, it's very, very rare, but it can cause a start to move really fast. That can pass through your clothes. And you don't want glass stabbed into you. The aprons can protect you from that. That's extremely rare, though, that whenever they slope like that. What is this student doing wrong? Again, some chemicals, safe touch, won't do anything, but if you ingest them, they are poisonous. What's wrong here? This one always trips everyone. So I believe we have a woman trying to strike a Bunsen burner, trying to start a fire. Another student holding out, using tongs, glassware, a flask, so they're trying to start a Bunsen burner and put that on. So they're dealing with heat or fire and glass. They both need to be wearing aprons and goggles. All right. So Google Classroom. Have y'all all signed up for Google Classroom? If not, you need to sign up for Google Classroom. We will have a test on this tomorrow. Read it. Get it signed. That's it for today. Any questions?